Today, I wanted to welcome Stef Hamerlinck, who I met a long time ago when I was first learning a lot about the fundamentals of evidence-based marketing and marketing effectiveness. We crossed paths. Stef since then has gone on to do a lot of amazing things and is really, I think, at the forefront of this idea of branding, integrating AI, and really thinking about what the future of branding looks like. So I'm thrilled to introduce Stef to you, and hope that as you are listening in, you can feel free to pop in any comments and questions you have into the chat. Stef's got about a 30-minute presentation. We'll have Q&A at the end, and then we'll ask all the questions that you guys are looking for answers on. Stef, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. I'm very excited to be here. Let me just quickly share my screen, so that's all good. All right. Is everybody seeing the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Great. Yeah, so let me just dive in because this presentation is quite dense. I did it last week at a keynote, and it was like the goal was 40 minutes. So I'm gonna race through it so you have time for your questions. And yeah, I think that's where the fun part is. I'm very curious also about to learn a bit more about what you're wondering about. But so the main thing I want to show and hope that I can show you today is the future of branding is bright and generative. Just a little bit about me. So during my daytime, I helped build a brand at Allen, which is a very interesting, fast-growing health insurance company globally. We have a mascot, of course, where I've worked a lot on, and we're also building the brand universe. I'll show a bit of that later, and also help other brands building mascot engines. And so, yeah, that's why I got to be known as like the mascot guy, which is a very fun position to be in, basically. Yeah, some of the characters I've been working on recently, some of them I'm working on today can't show yet as I'm under like very restrictive NDAs, as you know how that goes, but I'm hoping to share more soon. I also write a lot. I had a podcast before called Let's Talk Branding that now morphed into this thing called Marcel's Lab, which is also where you see my mascot, my personal mascot, Marcel the blue dog, where I write a lot about this interesting intersection of AI, mascots, brand building, all of that stuff.
Hi everyone. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. I'm super busy. But my assistant, Steph, will share my vision for the future. I really hope you enjoy. Bye bye.
I hope the audio came through on that one. Just checking.
Yeah, I heard it.
All right, good. So that was Marcel. He's a bit of a weirdo sometimes and has some main character vibe. So let's hope he doesn't get in the way too much. So like when we're talking about this AI stuff, there's two kinds of perspectives you often hear. The first one is we're cooked, like it's over. All jobs are gone, creativity is gone, the internet is gone. Like, you know, there's a lot of dark and pessimistic ends to this, not even talking about the we're all gonna die part of it. But that's like the we're cooked narrative. And then the other one is the we're cooking narrative, which is a narrative I think is a bit like underrepresented, unfortunately, and one I hope to share with you today that I'm excited about. But before we get to that, we do need to dive a little bit deeper into this dark, murky world, which is the world where we're cooked. Of course, like you can imagine this world where all brands are basically producing the same generic content and everything just feels, you know, like similar. But that's actually already there, you know, the sea of sameness, as we call it. I can pull up like a landing pages overviews of SaaS companies, and you will see this, you know, you this iconic visual of all the logos going to sans serif. A lot of this is happening. And this is not just subjective, this is actually proven. There's great research by Ipsos done where actually they show that only 15% of brands is distinctive, meaning people recognize the brand for who it is. That also means that 85% of marketing, you could say, or at least, brand marketing is down the drain, which is not a good score on us. So this was already happening pre-AI, but now something is changing. Now that sea of sameness is becoming a swamp of sameness. So what we see is a few stats that are interesting. The quantity of AI generated articles has already surpassed the quantity of human written articles. Um, and maybe a little pop quiz. People can put it in the chat. How many percentage of images do you think is AI generated? This is on social media, by the way, not just everywhere. Let me see if I can see the chat here. 65, Mark says. 75. Ooh, getting in the high ranges. That's good. 45%. It is, let's see, 71%. So I think Laura Wiese was closest. Congrats. I don't have the prize yet for you, but congrats for being so close. So that's huge. That's like really a huge number. And 40% of video content on major social media platforms is estimated to be AI generated. And that's causing a few problems. One of them is model collapse. Computer and data scientists can geek over this, but very simply, if you feed a model content that is AI generated, where there's often small, like little things in that don't make sense, it starts to like degenerate. You can try this for yourself by feeding in an image to a model and like keep asking to do edits on it. At some point, you'll end up in a very weird place. So we need original, fresh, often human or very polished content to feed these models. So that's already a problem. And then obviously we have the CFOs that heard somewhere that cheap, fast, and good is finally possible, resolving all of their problems. And so they want it. And so that, of course, pushes adoption a lot. And so all of these factors lead to this idea of the sloppening, it's a term coined by Joe Burns, a quite genius strategist whom I highly recommend to follow. The sloppening is upon us. So this idea of like a sort of drudgery world where everything is just, drowning in this swamp. But just for a minute, let's double tick on this idea of slop because it was the word of the year, I think, last year. But what is it really? Like we say it to a lot of things. For me, it needs to like adhere to these three things. It needs to be pure engagement clickbait. Very often you'll see like this content is unhinged, weird, absurd. It's just like its sole existence is to keep you watching, even for a few seconds. There's very little to basically no human input. This is mostly done like by agents or very simple text prompts or a combination of both, but it's not like crafted like you would in an original video. And then it's also mostly twists on the familiar. So what you'll see is existing content, IP, memes, uh, I heard that the baby theft cat is real. Could be. Maybe some of it is. Maybe it isn't. We don't know anymore. But it's definitely a reality where you'll see that a lot of this stuff is like just a remix of what already existed. And then bonus points, of course, for destroying the environment and unethically training. And of course, we're eating it up. Like there was a recent series of called Fruit Love Island on TikTok that was the fastest growing TikTok account ever. Got 3 million followers in like a day or so. So it's not like people aren't watching at all. It's an interesting combination, which we'll dive deeper into later.
I love slop! Give me more of that blubber! Oh, yeah! Yeah! Slop King! I love it! I love slop! Slime and weirdness everywhere!
Okay, Marcel. Sorry. Again, Marcel wants to sometimes be a little bit too much. So that was it for that like dark and very murky past. I hope to show you now a little bit of a positive side. So let's look at the cooking side. In this future, which is happening today, I think brands are becoming living, breathing, talking entities. They're engaging, delighting their audiences. They're mostly driven by human creativity, but of course, powered by generative AI. Some brands that are building this future today.
We don't have health insurance. We have sickness insurance.
This is Alan, of course.
Alan! Al! Alan! Alan! Alan!
So we asked a different question. What if we built something totally new and different? What if the system made you better? Where moving well is the easy choice. Where prevention becomes effortless. Where care finds you before crisis does. And when crisis comes, because life is life, someone is already there to take care of you. That strange, faraway world? We've been building it for 10 years. This is Alan. This is day one of the next decade.
So that was just an example of a little video we did for Alan in-house, fully with AI generated, of course. But let's do a quick slop fit check. Is this slop? Obviously, you can see it's AI. Like if you're a bit trained eye, there are some small defaults in there. It's not like 100% perfect yet. But is it slop? That's the question. First off, is it pure engagement clickbait? No, not really. It was a video with a very specific objective in mind. It's obviously entertainment driven. We wanted people to watch, but we had a specific message we wanted to land. Was there very little human input? No, we worked on it with 3 people, a motion designer, me for the art direction, and somebody else for the voiceovers and stuff for a few weeks. And then was it a twist on something that already existed? No, it's tailored to Alan's specific brand universe. Obviously, there were some memes in there and stuff, but it's really built on our own unique look and feel and character and values and tone of voice. So it's not like it was just a remix of what was already out there. And then these 2 bonus points, unfortunately, I can't fully solve them for you today. But a few things that I think are important to think about, like when we would do a shoot like this or like a production like this in a normal situation, there's a lot of like arguments to say that probably it would have be more have a bigger carbon footprint than like doing it this way. This is always the question, of course. Would you have done it or not? I don't know. I'm not here to solve that debate, to be honest. But there are things we're looking into. For example, mature asset management. We're basically building a system that instead of just prompting, it surfaces assets the moment you need them, so you don't always like have to burn through compute, and compute needs water, of course. So this is something that I think as this tool stack starts to mature, we'll build more tools that are smarter and use the right models at the right time to waste less, basically. And then on the unethical part, there are models that are trained ethically, and we're playing around with those as well. But again, there's a lot of work to be done. It's a space that is growing very fast, and so there are some shortcuts being made. And I think it's both on the marketer side to look into that, on the brand side to take a stand, but also, of course, on the models and the makers of the models to work on this. One of the most important parts, I think, to make things that don't feel like slop is you need to feed your model context. You already know this probably from just prompting and talking to LLMs, but it's the same in visual models. If you prompt for like a blue dog, I mean, I couldn't paint this, so it's well done, I would say, but it's also very generic, like it's just a painting of a blue dog. But if you feed it, for example, some images, in this case of my favorite artist, Michael Boremans, and then feed it my own character, and then feed into it some sort of story I want to tell and a vibe, then you get this much more interesting image that could be the starting point of an animation, a story you want to tell, a piece of social media content. And so you can instantly see the difference between like starting from just very generic text to prompt to image references, custom characters, and so on. But there is another problem. We were talking about it before the session started as well. Like there is AI hate. It's a real thing. These are comments on my YouTube videos, by the way. So I've personally had a lot of this backlash, and I've been quite surprised in the beginning of like how people push back on it. There's an interesting first point to make here is that actually when we look at who's making these comments, it's a very small group of people online that is visible, of course. But then when we look at, for example, System 1 scoring, which is, kind of, uh, let's say it's not industry standard, but it's a good benchmark in the industry for looking at the quality and effectiveness of an ad. For example, this ad from Coca-Cola got an exceptional star rating. So this is normal people watching these ads via the system don't have that same hate or vocalness about it. They just see and they hear the jingle bells from Coca-Cola and they think, oh, nice. So there's this one part where we're seeing that these ads are actually running in some places and people are responding to them normally when seeing them because a lot of people respond to brands in a very like low processing environment. It's not like they're watching with a loop, but there's also an online backlash to it. That's the first part of it. And then also what's interesting to see is that actually when we do research, that when we show people AI generated images and they don't know, they even prefer them. So that's the other question of like, how will you know? And then if you don't know and you like it, that's another interesting thing to think about. Or even the other way around, where we see, for example, this guy kind of like did a funny thing on Twitter where he said, "I want some feedback on my painting, my AI generated painting," and everybody like went full hate on him. And then apparently this was a real Monet, just to show also how people are more like instinctively reacting and not per se to the quality of the art, but more about just the AI part of it. But let's do a quick test. Yeah, I was just reading the I'll try and push through, Mark, if that's okay for you, and then we can run the questions after, or would you prefer me to just stop in the live? Yeah, okay, let's do it. So quick test. AI generated, which of these two? You can just say in the chat, left or right. Left, left, left. We're seeing predominantly left. So let's see here quickly. Good. You guys have good eyes. Let's do it again. Right, 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 right. Voila. Okay. Let's do it one more time. Left. It's hard. Right. Aha. This one is a bit more, people are very diverted. So it's the right one. So a good score for all of you, I would say, rather to the high end. But I've done this with audiences where all of them were hard to score. And again, like these are just some tests. But if you push for the quality, which you can do today, it's almost impossible to know. Even still, for brands, dealing with this risk is a real question that is run by today, because what we see is that this idea of like the last 2-3% of something that feels real is very hard to get to. So it might be like even years or maybe never, who knows, till we reach this point where especially AI video, I think, because there's motion and sound involved, is a lot trickier. We've seen the same in VFX, where they've spent millions on making realistic gorillas and still somehow were able to pick up on that. So how do you deal with that today? If you want to invest in AI, building your brand with it, like what do you do? There's 3 options today that I think are interesting. The first one is just being very real about the fact that it's AI, even, putting that in the forefront.
Don't worry. This is an AI-generated video about a group of friends on a night out, and they make a couple of pretty bad decisions. We tried to depict the story as realistically as possible. However, we regenerated the ending just because we can. Don't drink and drive. Real life can't be regenerated.
So that's very on the nose, of course. There is a question of how long you'll be able to do that before people start like, eye rolling and like, here's another AI generated thing. But at least it's an interesting way to address it up front. And I think you can get very creative with this type of message as well. Another one is just pushing really into the medium. So, sorry, let me just pause that for a sec. Goes on for a while like that. So that was a spot for Google Maps done in-house. So clearly here, like it's super unrealistic and they push the envelope on it. And I think sometimes it's also a smart choice. It's like treat it as a new medium, treat it as a way of doing something you couldn't do before. And I think that's a smart choice. And then the last thing is circumventing it. So by not adding realistic humans, for example, in this spot,
I don't eat, I don't sleep, I do nothing but think of you. You keep me under your spell, you keep me under your spell. You keep me under your spell.
and obviously like there's a lot of craft still involved in this, the sound design, the animation, but this was AI generated and it scored like even a lot better than the Coca-Cola spot. It scored in the top 1% of ads. And that's of course because of the efficacy of like characters and sonic branding and stuff like that. But it's built with AI, so it shows that it's a tool and that if you use it in the right way, that you can really make assets from it today that you can use today in a real environment. And the point I think is important to make is that it's not about replacing anything. It's a new medium. So this was done for Gucci, I believe, where they shot a traditional like brand film, great actors, great budget, I imagine. But they had this scene that was very specific where they wanted some sort of uncanniness, and they used AI for that. I think you'll be able to spot it. So yeah, a bit wild, but definitely the medium used for the right moment. And then some people are even imitating it, which I don't know why. I find it very funny. I don't know why this clip gets me every time, but it's clear, I think, that the future is hybrid. Like the way we'll start to blend different tools, and we're already seeing that today, the way you'll get creative control over these things, the way artists, motion designers, 3D designers are powering it, their workflows with it. I never should keep the sound on, but the way basically artists are getting more control, I think, is very interesting. And also what we've seen, what we're seeing today, and I think that's especially for marketers something like you can start playing with, is like even for internal pitches, being able to have an idea and prototype a campaign that much faster and that much more alive without having to hire other people or do this thing is, I think, a very exciting prospect. We see this like there's game designers that are testing their prototypes on X, seeing what engagement they get. Maybe you can go to a studio with this. It's the same for you as a marketer. Like if you have an idea, you can prototype it like this.
Let's go.
of course, we're also seeing a bit of a turn side, which I think is normal given, you can respond to AI like as we've seen with in those three ways, but you can also go like full authenticity. And this is something where we're seeing, especially the brands that have, the big war chest flexing like, hey, this is all made with real humans, like Apple did it with their glass logo reveal. We saw it with Coinbase and the BBC recently, where they're all putting out basically a spot, and then they're putting out the behind the scenes of, hey, look, this is real. And I think this is a momentary thing where we have to show it in that way. But I think at some point, at least that's what I'm hoping again, is that we'll get beyond this point of caring what it's made, because AI will be so ingrained in the tool stack anyway that it's a harder discussion to have. And hopefully we'll just get back to saying, well, this is good and this is not, and that's about it. There's also lots of regulations coming. I won't get too deep into that as it's mostly EU related transparency, but obviously that'll come to in act. And I think just sound off. The main thing, like, we all love creativity. Like, this spot for McDonald's was like fully handmade, probably I don't know, a million or more to make, with pure artistry, handmade, stop motion and stuff like that. And yeah, also love the fact that they brought their brand universe back to life, the characters back to life. I think they realized that was something that they do. They didn't do it with AI because they had the budget for it, and it's amazing. But I think the reality is, for a lot of brands, the case is that you won't be able to make that sort of stuff, but you can make an interesting brand universe, and you can use AI to scale that. So that's where I think for me is a very exciting opportunity. And so, oh, something disappeared here, but basically this slide should say, this is sort of recap of like, how do you make your brand future proof in this whole AI era? There's three rules that I want to quickly talk about that I think are important. The first one is going back to our stat of 50% being, not only 50% being distinctive. So the first rule for any brand is just be unmistakably you. Byron Sharp would obviously say this, Jenny Romaniak, but also Mark Ritson, everybody. I think distinctiveness is just like one of those fundamental principles that a lot of brands just don't get, which is a huge opportunity, I think, but very important. In this context, of course, what's interesting, Heinz even did this experiment where they let the models draw their bottles, saying draw ketchup, and the models are even drawing ketchup. So if you can get that distinctive, that even AI thinks about you when you prompt for the category, I think that's a very powerful thing. And then we get to the crux, of course, which is, how can you be most memorable? Well, it's not your logo. I'm sorry. It's not your brand colors. It's not your slogans. It's not the typical things we love to obsess over, especially brand design people. It's the living, breathing, talking assets, the fluent devices, the characters, the mascots, the sonic devices, the jingles, all of those, which I think is a really interesting opportunity, especially when you pair that again with AI. And so, yeah, here's my mascot fetish going full tilt. I love them, obviously. And I think they had an era, they kind of fell, and then now I think we're seeing a comeback, partly powered by technology, but also partly powered by a need for brands to stand out and grab the attention. And then, yeah, so generative AI unlocks these assets. I'm gonna go quickly so we have some time for the last part. And then the second part is, okay, you can be recognized, but you also need to be entertaining. We've seen again the fall of showmanship. That's similar with what we've seen with mascots, where basically salesmanship, rational selling, convincing took over. Les Binet, Peter Field, this idea of brand activation versus brand building. And we see clearly in the research that entertaining ads are just better. They stick longer. They give you more bang for your buck. And that's important in a time when reach costs a lot of money. And so some of these brands are just, doing it right, being distinctive, being entertaining, building a universe for their own. And generative AI does allow you to become a showman again, which is, I think, very interesting. Like, just do a goofy dance, basically. And so, by the way, that's interesting. What you just saw, this idea of like puppeting or video referencing, all of the videos that you see with Marcel is me acting and then uploading the video and then basically becoming Marcel, which is kind of like going back to the old school idea of puppeting or a puppetry, which I think is a very interesting and nice way to loop it around. And I think people like Paul Feldwick have written a lot about this, the importance of, entertainment, going back to the original marketing of the circus. Um, and then also very important, I think what we're seeing with the remixing is that IP is becoming a bit of like the traditional playbook of IP, building it and then letting people like experience it only on your turf is becoming somewhat blurry as we see it remixing. For example, Ghibli, like they had a lot of trouble. People wanted to Ghiblify themselves with the OpenAI models. And they didn't offer any sandbox or tools to do that. And so people just went ahead and do that. And I think there's an opportunity in there for brands as well. For example, Doodles, which is like a very, like they come from the NFT space, but they had a very distinctive look and they built models so people can now like doodleify themselves, but they own that sandbox and they own that IP, which I think is a smart move for brands. And so I think that's the opportunity for brands as well to invite your fans in. I've done similar things with Marcel, for example, where I built a sandbox where you can go and have fun with Marcel. You can hug him. You can do a lot of interesting stuff. And I've been seeing a lot of fun engagement on it, people sharing it. It's just a really interesting way to invite people in and not just be a one-way brand. And then, of course, we have the fact that brands are becoming conversational. The companion brands are everywhere, and every brand is becoming a companion. We saw Microsoft, for example, revamping their
Hey there,
Copilot
I'm on my way. Cake's looking great.
and like their Copilot into more of a visual character. Sadly, like I think Clippy was a bit too soon, but at least now we're back on that. And there's interesting brands like
Hey,
Tolan's.
is anyone there?
Yes. What are you?
I'm a Tolan. I'm here to find a new best friend. There's one of us for every one of you.
So that's an interesting example of like a very unique style, but everyone can have their own character. And then obviously this idea of like, this is really looking forward into the idea of, world models. Just wanted to cut off the sound. World models and this idea of like real-time interaction where it's not just you creating beautiful on-brand distinctive content, but also you building these worlds for people to walk around in. But obviously, what would make a world interesting to walk around in? Think Minecraft, think distinctive, unique formats, think interesting worlds. So you need to build that IP first, of course. And that's where being distinctive and entertainment is key in this playbook. And so that's it. That's the blueprint, I believe, of a future-proof brand. And so the only question I have for you is, are we cooked or are we cooking? And I'm ready for some Q&A. Let's see here. Should I stop sharing my
This is
screen?
awesome. So many things.
Yeah.
There's a question that I did see pop up in terms of tools from Britt. What specific AI image / video tools do you consider the best at the moment in time?
Yep. So I'm using for image generation, I'm using two models specifically. So GPT Image 2, which is the latest model from OpenAI, and then Gemini 3.1, aka Nano Banana Pro. Those are the two models that are best at rendering consistently character, style, and stuff like that. I alternate between both because for some jobs, one is better than the other. And then for anything that is animation, it's Seedance 2. This is really like far beyond any other model at the moment. Google Omni has just been released as well, which is interesting, but not better than Seedance. Yeah.
Then there's a second part of that question in terms of the process that you're using to create an ad. There was one of the screens you flashed up had an image, a video on one side, and then there was like a wireframe or kind of a workflow or something on the left-hand side. And I wonder, if maybe that you could go back to that part and just maybe talk through some of that as
Yeah. Trying to find where was it this? No,
yeah, I think
wasn't
it
this
was
one.
that one.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, well, this is like what you're seeing here on the left is like what we call a node-based approach, which is basically where you feed it some sort of like asset, and then you do all sort of iterations on it and transitions on it. That's like one of the ways you can work around it. And what you're seeing here, which is very important, and which is what I mentioned earlier, is this idea of feeding context to your model. So feed it like that can be a raw drawing of what you want, and then some texture, an image from Pinterest, a background, a photo. Like feed it all of the things that are important, and then start building together what those assets can be like. But in terms of like an actual process of building, say, a video or a social media video or an ad, it's very close to traditional like way of working in the sense that you start from brainstorming, you then go into scripting. The interesting part is what really changed a lot is this like storyboarding used to be like a way to, prototype what the story is going to look like. Right now, for me, storyboarding is building the actual story and the actual visuals. And so once the storyboard is approved, I just go ahead and animate those images from the storyboard, and you're already in like final territory. So like the whole drafting and then let's go shoot it or produce it and then come back is a bit different. But other than that, it's really like finding again like finding a good story and then finding a good look and feel that feels on brand, and then making sure you have the right images, you have consistency, and then using the right models to edit, animate those things, and then you can go back into traditional video editing. What I've found that is very important to make content that works well is like it needs some human spark, whether it's the fact that all of the animation is actually driven by human motion, or whether the voice design is spoken by a human, or at least like the draft for it is spoken by a human. There's a lot of these small nuances that then go into the final element that make it like feel more authentic in a way than what you do if you just do like, make me an ad about whatever and let the model decide all of the stuff for herself.
The when you're describing the Marcel character and how you're creating that, I pictured like there's the making of Avatar kind of thing where it's like green screen, but then the actors are wearing all kinds of like prosthetic devices to pick up, I think, on different nuances of their face and their movements and actions and all that kind of stuff, and then digitizing that. Is that obviously you don't have an Avatar budget for Marcel, but is it something like that, or you're just in your room just messing
It's
around?
it's a Yeah, it's a lot messier. It's just like no green screen even. It's just like me standing against the wall. Like there can even be stuff around it. Like I can show you stuff if you want.
Sure.
I'm still sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
trees.
Okay, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
have a look here. For example, this was the video that you saw in the
And
beginning.
Steph will share my vision for the future. I really hope you enjoy. Bye bye.
So
And
so now,
Steph will
yeah,
share my vision for the
that's
future.
it. Like
I really
that
hope.
wasn't very fancy at
And
all.
Steph.
So just like a video me behind my desk. Obviously, sometimes I do a little bit more time. Like here, I shot this thing on the Atomium. No, it's not. It's not this one. It's this one, I think.
I want to raise
And
some
no,
questions.
also not this one, but this one. Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome at the Museum of the Future.
So
I
this
am.
was fun because this was
Hi
the input for
everyone.
it. But the interesting thing is like I can even revolve the camera around it 360 and be in a totally different environment, but also like loop around. So it's like, you just use the driving animation and then you can go like in a full different world basically, which is just very interesting. And the voice as well, like it's just I have this stupid Marcel voice. It's ridiculous, but my main point with Marcel was that I wanted to show people that like you can get interesting, fun content that feels authentic with AI. It's how you approach it, it's how you think about it. And then, the comments on Marcel aren't like people hating all the time because I just think it's fun and interesting.
That's fast. And so that tool is scenario.
Yeah, scenarios like there's many of those, just like what you call like platforms, like there's Magnific, there's a bunch of those. I love Scenario. It has all the models, it has all the stuff in there. So
Mm,
what I would recommend for people in terms of tools, like, is just don't lock into one vendor, like don't lock into Google's system or OpenAI system, because the models change so fast, and then all of a sudden there's a Chinese model on the market that's 10 times better, and you built your whole system around like one vendor. I wouldn't do that. So I highly recommend to look into platforms that are a bit more agnostic and offer you different tools, basically.
that's wild. Um, Another question. Well, I asked a question. Feel free to throw in some other questions. I do have a question that I popped in there
I
earlier.
want to raise some questions
Is that your
Sorry.
voice, by the way, or is that
nature
like an
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
voice?
reality
that's my
itself.
that's
I
just
want
me
to
talking
raise
like
some
Marcel.
questions about
That's it.
the
I don't know
nature.
why he's not stopping, by the way, but yeah.
Um, so a question for you, if an AI video scores well in pre-testing, but there's backlash when it's live, does the backlash matter? I mean, it doesn't even matter that it's necessarily that it's an AI backlash, but it's kind of, I guess it's just a fundamental question around pre-testing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, pre-testing can only get you so far. But the bigger question I would ask is like, how big is the backlash? Is it contained? Does it actually hurt the brand? Like, and obviously those are also things that are not easy to measure. But from what I've seen, like on any given post, like you'll maybe have like, if 10 million people see it and like 0.5% comment on it, that's still a lot of comments, and so it looks visible. But then in the reality is like, if you put it on channels where you don't have these comments, and it works for your brand using your brand metrics tracking, whatever that is, like I don't see a huge issue with it. And I think it's a temporary thing, but at least, like, yeah, it's something to keep in account for sure.
I was shocked about the 71% number of all the images. So is that all the images in ads, or is that just online,
No,
or
social media.
that's crazy?
Yeah. I don't know how accurate it is. I checked the stat because AI hallucinates stats, so it's a real
Yeah.
stat. But it's yeah, the problem is with these things is it's not like 71% of the image you'll see on social media. It's just because so much you're not seeing is churned out. Like, there's millions of fake accounts with millions of fake pieces of content, and the algorithms are doing their best to serve you, content that's interesting, engaging. It's the same with the AI articles. Like, there are a lot more, and they are surpassed what's human written, but that doesn't mean they're all read. It's just the volume, in sheer volume, they're crossed at.
Yeah. On the, I'm just going to keep asking questions. Feel free to throw in any questions, anybody. But on the side of like the good, fast, and cheap thing, when you're working with clients, are they genuinely excited about, like, in comparison to say that $1 million or however many millions of dollars it was for that Gucci ad, like the ability to do things that you could never possibly think of before is really interesting. But there's still like this budget implication that um, that's a reality and a constraint for
Yep.
a lot of brands. So are you seeing it as a benefit, like that people think it's good, or is it just an additional cost? Are they treating it like, well, we got to do this, but we can add in something on AI?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, obviously, like for me, it's interesting because I position myself as like, I'm like 10 times more expensive than like what you would get if you go like to a cheap tool, or you make it yourself. Like, I'm it's quite expensive to, for example, build a mascot with me, but compared to a traditional 3D studio or like a big agency that does these types of things, it's definitely like a lot
Mm,
cheaper. And so I'm like in this weird in between space where it's like still very premium, and I'm like the brands that work with me have to make the investment in it. So, and it's significant. Like I think that's also important for them to, because they know like the investment they're gonna make in this, especially if it's like a mascot, it's an asset that's gonna be visible everywhere. You still need to spend money and like make sure the quality is good and that the research has been done and that the testing is there and all of those things. So it's like they feel it as like we're making a serious investment. We're just doing it in a way that's possible for us on like
Hmm.
that we could get sign off of from our CFO basically. Because in the other world, like they just won't do it. That's the problem,
Hmm.
I think. So
Yeah.
it's opportunistic, but still like making sure that, you know, it's high quality and you do your due diligence because it's not because you can make the character cheaply with AI. Like you can just go and like we did, I did a workshop last week with a group of people and we just made this little fun mascot for them in probably 10 minutes. But that's not where the work is. Like the work is making sure that it's applied well, that you know it's trademarked, that's all of these things work for them, that also that internally the team is aligned, that they can use this. Like there's so much factors that go into successfully implementing a mascot in your marketing that are not related to, you know, the pixels that you generate, that I think require yeah, this type of investment.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, a question from Derek. For big brands, like thinking about the Coca-Cola example, for big brands, when authenticity is important, because people respond to brands they trust. If AI is the one doing the singing, the talking, etc., and mimicking all the human elements that would make the brand unique, is that actually authenticity? And maybe just generally authenticity, like
Yeah.
comments on that.
Yeah, as I said, like I think like is a video of me doing stuff like a video of Marcel doing stuff driven by my voice and my animation, I mean my actual body movement. For me that's authentic. Like I
Yeah.
I don't see a big thing in like versus like, you know, VFX or filters or what. Like there's so many ways that you can create an image, and so what's authentic or not is really the question underneath that is how much were humans involved in the idea and in the craft. And I think that's indeed where you see like the difference between brands just putting out like the most generic slop. You can feel that. But that was the same before. Like you could feel it when they bought stock images and they put on some cringy music. So
That's true.
yeah, nothing really changed. It's just like, you know, well, a lot changed, but I mean, in that regard of authenticity, I think it's just you need to feel that there was an investment being made, and with the AI tools getting better and creative control getting better, that's great. I think the problem is mostly that non-creative people, non-crafts people, people without taste are thinking they can just go ahead and make this stuff and they don't need the creatives anymore. That's where it goes wrong, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in general, the thing around authenticity I find fascinating because, like, the stock example you gave is amazing. Like, it's such a good
Yeah.
counterpoint to that because we've been using stock forever, which is totally inauthentic. Um, yeah. Uh, Question about the relationships. Oh, this is an interesting one from Laura. How do you see the relationships between clients and agencies changing as the AI use increases for brands? Like, you just built this character in 5, 10 minutes, he said, as a mock-up. I mean, that might have been something that a brand would have, or an agency might have charged a client for, and taken 3 days or a month or something to come up with that. But there's
Yeah.
obviously a speed component there, but and a value component, but just the relationship itself.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see a lot more in-house building. Like I've seen it like happen at Alon. I've seen it happen at a lot of brands. I also think it's an opportunity for smaller solo consultants, creatives to come up and, you know, offer their services directly to brands. But there's room for agencies, I think, for like, you know, delivering on like super valuable creative stuff, strategic alignment, all of that. So I think there's still room for it, but the model is definitely changing. That's something I've seen, and I think the thing is like, especially when brands start realizing that we need to be consistently distinctive, entertaining over the long term, the almost logical conclusion is that you need to build this sort of like world that consistently comes back, whether that's characters, sound, the combination of all of those things. And that means you almost have to build systems that you can in-house use, to use those
Mhm.
assets on your website, because otherwise you're just gonna have to go to an agency for each asset, and that's just, killing yourself. Versus the old model, which was like, let's do a cool brand campaign with that agency, and then maybe next year we'll do another one with another, and it's gonna be two different worlds. It doesn't matter if like it's a well-made ad. And so I think there's gonna be a lot more of that, and a lot more in-house building of engines. But again, the craft, the creativity, the taste, the ideas, all of these things are still super valuable, maybe even more valuable in the future. So it's just gonna be about repackaging that.
Yeah, I think to some degree there's a shift in the way an agency charges for some of this kind of stuff too. I mean,
Yeah.
the way the business models had operated before, the business model itself and the billing cycles and all that kind of stuff, just and the classification of what the service is, maybe needs to change. The output
Yeah.
might be the same, but how they charge for it might differ.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of like agencies get nervous, like especially when I get involved directly with the brand, and then it's like, can you loop in the agency? It's like a very weird place to be in because it's like, sure, I mean, I'm happy to work on that, but then it's like I'm building a system for the client that the agency can also use, but like how much further do you need to go to then, of course, for that brand to just say, well, let's just take the system and run with it. But yeah, it's just an interesting time. We don't know where this will end. But yeah, I think again, like creativity will always have huge value. It's just how you package it.
Yeah, I love like some of the things you said around specifically that statement, and as I'm reflecting on your presentation, I mean, it's not that creativity. I think the one thing that seems to be a threat for a lot of people is that, especially on the creative side, that creative can't be replicated, or good creative. But it feels to me like, and you had some really great examples in all these, that it's good creative. It's
Yeah.
just how we think of it. It's not necessarily attacking our discipline. It's more about augmenting in the way that we use. It's a new creative tool, I think, is how you said it.
Yeah. And like again, the question is so it can be very simple, simplistic. If you say like, "Oh, this is AI generated," or it's not, you have to choose. But the reality is like it's in the tools. Like when somebody is using Photoshop to do like a generative fill on a piece of object in a photo, is that then like AI generated, or is it like AI assisted? How many percentage do you need for it to crush the threshold of like this is no longer authentic or good content anymore? Like it's a weird debate. And actually, like when you look at the actual tools that we've been building in for years, it's already getting in there. And on the other side, yes, there is a sort of like democratization going on where people with maybe like not the illustration skills or 3D skills are starting to play around with this. But what you also see at the same time is like they play around with it, and at a certain point they do feel like, okay, this is like where I've reached my limit, and then they go and hire a designer or a creative to actually do stuff with it or improve it. And so yeah, I think we'll come back to that idea of what is good, creative, and what is not. It's not to do with AI. It's just, craftsmanship and investment and all of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Steph, this has been awesome. How can people find out more about you and what you're doing, and reach out if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. Just find me there, Stef Hamerlinck, or on Substack, Marcel's Lab. You'll find me there as well. Those are like my main spaces I hang out. So feel free to reach out, and yeah, happy to talk.
Awesome. This, like, genuinely, I'm so grateful to you for doing this. Thank you.
No,
This has
no,
been
you're
awesome.
welcome. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, I'm gonna just take over the screen real quick just to share a couple things and let people know again. Um, We do have the survey, so if you can take a couple minutes to fill that in, that would be great. And then I'm just going to zip through the other end here. So we do have a couple more presentations coming up this week. Oh, now my screen won't advance. Right. Yeah. I don't know what screen you're seeing. Oh, there. So we've got one on Wednesday at lunchtime. So the career killing campaigns, why B2B is never just about business, and specifically speaking about creative there and the creative process around what safe actually means. And then this one on Thursday was ZGM and the change makers talking about the most expensive sentence in marketing. Again, this is at lunch. So it's a couple of great talks still coming up this week for Creativity Week. And thanks to Trigger for being the presenting sponsor for that. Again, thank you to all of you for tuning in. And Stef, awesome to see you again. And thanks for joining us here.
Thank you. It was great being here.